What do you think this stands for? This box. What do you think, Ryan?
Give to the front.
Give to the front. That's a good one. But I thought of it as a coffin. You know, a coffin. And we all go to a box like this eventually. What I had here wanted to share with you is that the beginning of Masnavi, Rumi's Masnavi, we all remember what that passage is. You know, we all read it, but I'm not sure. Somehow for me, when I say this in English and reflect on it, I understand it better. Persian is so poetic, and we read these poems, and sometimes we chant these poems and sing these poems, but I'm not sure how well we reflect on it. So basically, the way I understand it, this is the way this poem, this beautiful poem, is translated. That a craftsman pulled a reed. You know, I brought also something for a reed. Could this be a reed? Now, what's a reed? Pulled a reed from the reed bed. The craftsman pulled the reed from the reed bed. Cut holes in it. Right? Cut holes in it, like eyes and nose and eye, and I'm not going to say the other holes. So cut all these holes and called it a human being. That's what that poem said, right? From then on, from that point when they cut the reed from the reed bed, cut holes in it, and that became a human being, Rumi says from that point on, man has been wailing, a tender wailing, wishing or yearning for that ultimate reunion. Wishing and yearning for that ultimate reunion. So this is Rumi's perception that this life is temporary. We all want to connect to the source of existence, which is God. And then I look and see that Baha'u'llah, the Prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, and basically all the manifestations of God, in one way or another, say the same thing. Just one of the passages of Baha'u'llah. The purpose of God in creating man hath been and will ever be to enable him to know his Creator. Same thing, to connect to the source. And to attain his presence. To this most excellent aim, this supreme objective, all the heavenly books and the divinely revealed and weighty scriptures unequivocally bear witness. So Baha'u'llah also says that the purpose of creation is to know God and to connect to Him and ultimately reach His presence. So, but then in this connection, there are so many poems of Rumi and there's so much writings of Baha'u'llah which says that ultimately we have to become love itself. There's so much discussion of what love is and what it is. So I'm going to share with you some of these perceptions of this love and this connection to the source of existence, which is God. So this one, for example, is called the price of reunion. If the price of reunion is death, I'm here to accept the penalty. If the price of reunion is to turn into ashes, I'm here to light the fire. What are they talking about? If the price of reunion is to lose oneself completely, I'm here to embrace it. Isn't it the moth that keeps revolving around the candlelight until the candle extinguishes? Isn't it the moth again that keeps turning and turning around the candlelight until it gives its life in that gyration? You know, the light, the candle is consumed, and the moth or the butterfly also consumes himself in this process of love until both of them become nothing and join one another. And so it says, let me dance, woo, turn, and burn until I turn into ashes. until I become totally extinguished, until I become nothing. And you know, that's the last passage of the 7 values that Baha'u'llah says that ultimately we have to become nothing. And when we become nothing, then we really connect to the source of existence, which is God. So he says, until I become totally extinguished, until I become nothing, only then love and love alone would live forever. So the question is that we have to become love in that process. And the sooner we become love in that process, the easier it is to give this bodily frame. And so I know there's some lovers of Rumi in our audience, so I chose another poem from Rumi, which again talks about this question of love and dying, and how connected these things are to one another. Is there any? So anyway, this beautiful poem of Rumi also on this question of love and dying, you know, to portray for you. He says, die in this love. If you die in this love, your soul will be renewed. Don't fear the death of that which is known. If you die to the temporal, your soul will be renewed, and you'll become timeless. Cut off those chains that hold you prisoner to the world of attachment. Die to the deathless, and you'll be eternal. Die and come out of the cloud. When you come out of the cloud, you'll be the fulgent moon. Die to the din and the noise of mundane concerns. In the silence of love, you'll find the spark of life. So again, he talks about this connection of love and life and dying, and they're all connected. They're all one and the same. So, and then as you probably notice in this beautiful poem of Rumi that I just read, he's telling us that that death is death of ego, and that death is death of self, and that death is death of conceit. So when we die, and Baha'u'llah said the death of the lower self. When we die of the lower self, we connect to the higher self. So, and then I found, you know, I guess these, there are a number of poets I noticed, that feel this connection. But when they feel this connection, then that's the point that they write a poem, but they don't want to say who they are. If anyone knows who this poet is, tell me. This is just beautiful. He says, at this point of dying, that's when he wrote this poem. He says, do not stand at my grave and weep. I'm not there. I do not sleep. On 1,000 winds that blow, I'm the diamond glints in the snow. I'm the sunlight on ripened grain. I'm the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I'm the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I'm the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand in my grave and cry. I'm not there. I did not die. So in this process of dying, we see this connection to living. If we die of self, then all the manifestations of God, and poets like Rumi tell us that we receive the everlasting life. So it's time perhaps to share with you a couple of passages from the hidden words of Baha'u'llah, who tells us about this in his poetic language, assuring us of life beyond, life everlasting. He says, O son of man, thou art my dominion, and my dominion perisheth not. Wherefore fearest thou thy perishing? You won't perish. Thou art my light, and my light shall never be extinguished. Why dost thou dread extinction? Thou art my glory, and my glory fadeth not. Thou art my robe, and my robe shall never be outworn. Abide then in thy love for me, love of God. that thou mayest find me in the realm of glory. So all are saying that the connection of this thing, love, life, and death, that cycle. O Son of Spirit, my claim on thee is great. It cannot be forgotten. My grace to thee is plenteous. It cannot be veiled. My love has made in thee its home. It cannot be concealed. My light is manifest to thee. It cannot be obscured. Now, with all this thing said, Rumi said something beautiful. Again, with regard to his own death. I don't know if you've come across that poem. I don't remember. I didn't find the Persian version of it. You probably know it. But Rumi, when he was close to dying, like 700 years ago, he revealed this particular poem. And this is that poem. It says, when you see my funeral, don't say what a separation. It is time for me to visit and meet the beloved. Since you have seen my descent, then do see my rising. Why complain about setting of the moon and the sun? Which seed that went under the earth failed to grow up again? For my funeral, call the drummers, timbal beaters, and tambourine players. March toward my grave dancing, thus happy, gay, intoxicated with hands clapping. He was unhappy. So happy, gay, intoxicated with hands clapping, so that people would know that the friends of God go happy and smiling toward the place of meeting. That's, some of these translators are amazing how good they are. This is one of the best ones. And then, in that connection, then Rumi has this revelation, where he says, and find the Persian version, I love this English version, he says, you have been the prisoner of a little pond, he tells us, that here, in this world, we are attached to our degrees and to this house and to this fancy house and clothing and all that. He says, you have been the prisoner of a little pond. I'm the ocean and its turbulent flood. Come merge with me. Be with me. Leave this world of ignorance. I'll open the gate to love. Again, when we disconnect from the lower self, and all of us have it, part of this part of that that I had was that lower self. I couldn't find it. I don't know if anyone of you have that lower self, but this lower self of this guy, this is the world of conceit, arrogance, and me nature, right? And not going to give up anything, right? And everything is for me, all the selfish, lower self. The Bible says, in man there are two natures. Is it spiritual or higher nature? Is material or lower nature? In one he approaches God, in the other he lives for the world alone. So this guy, it's not us. But this guy is living for the world alone. Now, we all have these two sides, right? I remember this, I heard of this professor of philosophy, Jacob Needleman, by any chance? He's a professor of philosophy in the University of San Francisco, and he was saying that, he was probably telling us Baha'is as well, that this oneness and unity and everything is one is so beautiful. But before we get to that oneness, we have to experience this two-ness. He was saying this, he made this word, is two-ness. And this two-ness is that lower self and higher self. Unless we experience it and we go through these stages, we cannot reach that high stage. So if from our childhood we say unity, one, first and foremost it says this unity of ourselves. Am I one with myself? Or am I fighting with myself? Because when I'm fighting with myself, I get all these diseases. Okay. Psychological disease, mental disease, and physical disease. All of us have had it, right? He says most of it is because of this two-ness. And then he says, when you overcome that two-ness, you become one with yourself. You're comfortable in your own skin. And when you become comfortable with your own skin, then it's time to become comfortable with your neighbor, and the next one, and the next one. And ultimately, at one point, when we mature enough, then we can reach that vision of oneness that Baha'u'llah has. But we have to understand that in the human nature, as Baha'u'llah says, the two natures are there. We have to fight it. And then he goes on and saying that, we all hear that we have to suffer, right? Buddhism, particularly, Baha'i faith, all religions. Suffer, suffer. That suffering is suffering of this two-ness until it becomes harmonized and become one together. This is what we're saying. So, a few more passages and I'll be done. And then Baha'u'llah says, O Son of Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. That's why tonight is the night of celebration, right? I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? So, when people die, many of us, have the day of mourning, and then the 7th day of mourning, and 40th day of mourning, and then again the year comes, again mourning. Now, among Baha'is, they say, what do we say? It's a memorial gathering. Jalajit, as I quote. And that memorial gathering is really reflect on who that person was, and who we are, and where we have been, and where we're going, right? So, but from here on, with our discussion with Nora, we're going to call it the day of celebration. Even the day after should be the day of celebration. Baha'u'llah says, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? And they said, with the joyful tidings of light, I hail thee. That's the joyful tidings of light when we go up, right? To the court of holiness, I summon thee. Abide therein, that thou mayest live in peace forevermore. But this is all nice, all that kind of stuff. But now I'm going to come to this comment. I'm going to go to one of the mentors of Rumi. Do you remember who was the main mentor of Rumi? Oh, Shams during that time, but as he was coming from Afghanistan, nation building, do you remember? Attar. He was met when he was 12, 13 years old. And this is what Attar says about this life and death. This world is like a closed coffin, in which we are shut, and in which, through our ignorance, we spend our lives in folly and desolation. When death comes to open the lid of the coffin, each one who has wings will fly off to eternity. Which one of these has wings? I don't know. I didn't find any wings, but this guy is this guy's going to go fly to eternity. The world is a closed coffin in which we're shut, and in which, through our ignorance, we spend our lives in folly and desolation. When death comes to open the lid of the coffin, each one who has wings will fly off to eternity. But those without, one of these poor guys looks good too, but she doesn't have wings. So those without, what does he say? Will remain locked in the coffin. So my friends, before the lid of this coffin is taken off, do all you can to become the bird of the way to God. Do all you can to develop your wings and your feathers. Beautiful. 800 years ago, in the city of Nashville, it says that this word is like a coffin. And here there's a purpose for life, right? The purpose is to develop our wings. So thank you, Nora, because you told me this. I've been trying to develop my wings in the past couple of weeks, but this is too late. But I'm trying. And Baha'u'llah says, the sun of reality is shining upon you. The cloud of mercy is pouring down, and the breezes of providence are wafting through your souls. Then he says, although the bestowal is great and the grace is glorious, yet capacity and readiness are requisite. You have to have the capacity. Yes, we can fly, but we have to have capacity, and readiness are the requisite. Without capacity and readiness, the divine bounty will not become manifest and evident. No matter how much the cloud may rain, the sun may shine, and the breezes blow, the soil that is sterile will give no growth. So, something for all of us to reflect upon. So, with all of that, so we're going to come to this idea of the two-ness. I heard it from this professor. He says it's okay. He always said this two-ness is bad. The lower side. He says it's needed. That's why there has to be suffering. That the main part of that suffering is for us to become one with ourselves, then with the universe. And that's what Baha'i says as well. So I think it's best to conclude with this beautiful passage from another immortal poet and philosopher, none other than Lebanese. What's his name? For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? What is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free thy breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and see God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you reach the mountaintop, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. This was in conclusion, but I just had thought about another short poem. Help me with the Farsi version, when he says that یادت آید که وقت آمدنم همه خندان بودند تو گریان پس همچنان که وقت رفتن تو همه خندان کم خندان. Do you remember that when you came in this poem, poet says, everybody was laughing and happy and you were crying. Then that poet says that when you then do something that when you want to leave, you'll be laughing, everybody crying. I'm saying that when you leave, everybody will be laughing, but you'll be laughing too. Ecstasy that you're joining the Creator. Thank you.